Thank you for clicking on this video. We're going to have a quick chat about budgeting for deployment. So this is helpful for anybody who is experiencing deployment. You could be active duty, you could be a reservist going on a deployment, you could even be the family members or even parents, spouses, siblings, anybody who is affected by a deployment and wants to help budget through it and make a plan for the deployment and spending. So to start, we always talk a little bit about the emotional cycle of deployment. This cycle is created on an average or typical deployment. So depending on if you're deployed stateside or if you're forward deployed, it varies. So an average deployment, you have the anticipation of departure, building up to the detachment and withdrawal before you leave, to emotional disorganization around the time of departure to continue a couple weeks, into stage 4 of recovery and stabilization, creating your new routine. Then to the anticipation of return, preparing for the sailor to come home or to get, if you are the sailor, to get home, go back to home port. Stage 6, the return and renegotiation, and into stage 7, reintegration and stabilization. If you are a forward deployed family or sailor, this cycle may not be really a cycle. It could just be a little bit of everything. So when you're in the stage 5 return anticipation of return, you could already be anticipating the next departure, as well as sometimes you may even skip portions of the stage 7 with stabilization because you don't have enough time to really hit that stabilization before you're already thrown into preparation for the next deployment. Deploymentality. So this definition here kind of helps us to really get into that deployment mentality of what is our outlook, what is our view towards deployment, and it's also always good to keep in mind to make it something hopefully to help us make this deployment better, even make it go by faster, or even a funnier, better experience, something a little easier for you to manage. So we're hoping with budgeting for deployment, we're able to help you plan ahead and make it an easier, smoother deployment for you. So our agenda, we're going to cover important documents, managing finances, communication, and then the different resources available for success. So some important documents. We've talked about this in other classes that we offer, but here are a few things that we want to just cover. So the emergency evacuation program, this is if you have dependents and you're stationed overseas, you need to have this filled out and make sure that your family knows where it is as well, and turn in a copy to your command. If you do have questions, please reach out to your command, emergency evacuation program manager, or the EOC here on base. Special power of attorney. You never really think that this is something you need, but it is, and you need multiple possibly. This is something you could go to legal here on base, the region legal office. There's the office over at PSD next to McDonald's on Yokosuka base. We'll help you out with special power of attorneys. A will. Unfortunately, this is never an easy thing to talk about, but it is something that we need to keep in mind, as you never know how things might go and you rather be prepared than underprepared for deployment. So we want to make sure that we have a will in case anything does happen to our sailor or to the family members at home, that everybody knows what our last wishes are and where things are allocated. So a will does not change the service members group life insurance, the SGLI. So we want to verify that we have both of those taken care of and that they are up to date with the correct information, as well as the family care plan. So if you are a sailor and you either have children, dependent children, or you are taking care of elderly or disabled members of your family, you need to have a family care plan. This is also if you're a single parent or if you are the sole provider for these elderly, disabled family members. You need to have a family care plan that states what's going to happen, who's going to care for your dependents while you're deployed. Always make sure our ID cards are up to date. Make sure that they aren't going to expire while you're underway. Passports in case you go to any ports. Some ports you are not allowed to go off out into the local area unless you have a passport. It depends on the rules and regulations they have and what they work out with the US Navy. Auto renters, homeowners, bike insurance policies. It's important to still have these, especially when you're gone. You never know if there's going to be a natural disaster or if maybe your toilet's just going to spring a leak and something's going to happen. And we want to make sure that everything is covered and taken care of and we can easily get it fixed while you're gone. Vehicles or home titles. So, depending on if you have a home that you own or even your vehicles here on base, making sure the right people have the information, as well as with that, making sure I know overseas we deal with road tax and a JCI tax. In Japan, just like in the States, depending on your state, you have local registration or car inspections each year or how often the regulations are. So we want to make sure that we're up to date and we're planning ahead for that information. Also, spending plan. So, spending plan while you're at home as well as when you're on deployment. Also, if you have a family, making sure that you have a plan for both sides. What are you going to be spending money on for port visits? If you get the opportunity to go to port, what are your budgets going to be? What's your budget for the at home family? Different things for food, making sure you have money for emergencies, care of the house or the car, care of the children, things like that. We want to just have a game plan, know what we're going to spend, or make a plan. Things that we need to do and verify. Always, always, always update our NFAS, the Navy Family Accountability and Assessment System. This is the way the Navy keeps track of its service members and its family members in case there ever is an emergency or natural disaster. This is how the Navy is going to be able to reach out to the families through a survey and check to see how they can provide service and assist the Navy sailors and their family members during this time. If our information is not up to date, it's going to take a longer amount of time for the local commander or base to be able to reach out and make sure that they have accountability. Update your page too. This has important information on it, and I'm sure your admin office will want to make sure that you need to update it as well, especially if there are any changes, any marriages, any children being born, any deaths, anything of that nature. We want to make sure, major life events, that we update our page too. Banking and credit account and password information. This is really important. We didn't realize this until after our first deployment as a family, and it really has been helpful because in case there is low internet or no connectivity and something needs to be checked or maybe a bill needs to be verified, I have the information at home as well as my sailor knows that I'm taking care of the information and making sure our accounts are good to go. Also, verify your bank and credit account services. Also, let them know, especially if you're a single sailor, let them know, hey, I'm going to be deployed for this time if you need to, or if there's any charges that seem fraudulent, hey, please email me at this address. Make sure that all of our contact information is up to date with our bank accounts, so if they do need to get a hold of us underway, they're able to. Insurance policies. Make sure that you're covered. Make sure that it won't go null or bad or end under your deployment, and that if you need to, you can purchase the next month or the set amount of time that you might be gone or for the next year. This is really important because you don't want to come home and not have car insurance and then you're unable to drive your car or you find out has a big scratch or some kind of issue. So we want to make sure that we continue our insurance policies. Thrift Savings Plan, or TSP. Make sure that we're contributing to our retirement and making sure that we have it all set up correctly. When you're out to sea, sometimes your internet connection is not as reliable, so we want to guarantee that we have this all set up for us. Utility payments and coverage. Make sure that our bills are going to get paid. You won't be living in your house, but either your family will, or maybe somebody's going to come in and check on it. So we want to make sure that our bills are going to be paid and that everything will be okay and you won't come back to 6 months of a bill not being paid, and maybe they're coming after you for overcharge or late fees, all kinds of extra charges. A real great thing if you are on Yokosuka base, they have a what is it called? GI Bill Pay that is located off base. A lot of sailors and families use this to automatically have their utility payments taken out of their paycheck, and it's automatic payments. So this way you aren't concerned about having to task this to somebody else, and it's completely taken care of. Taxes. Knowing when your taxes are going to be due. So maybe you leave for deployment in March. Make sure you get your taxes done before. This way you don't have to worry about it underway or be concerned with tasking somebody else and having to get the power of attorney to get their assistance to finish them. So we really want to be aware of what our deployment is going to look like and what things might be due or that we need to take care of, as well as the Japan annual road tax. So every year here in Yokosuka, typically the base will have a road tax event where you can come in and pay for it. We just want to make sure that we're accounting for that and making sure we take care of it, or give somebody the power of attorney to take care of it if we will be underway. Managing finances. So it's really important for us to get the family on the same plan. So really sit down with our partner and discuss what our plan is. What do we expect throughout this deployment? Also being realistic, setting up realistic goals like, hey, this is probably going to be the budget for food while you're underway, or here's our budget for when you go to port. This is what a reasonable amount. Like if you need to spend over this amount, please just let me know. Just kind of creating that plan. Establish obtainable financial goals. So think about what you're spending and what your goals are. Do you want to try to start saving 5% of the paycheck for savings and then 5% to retirement? Or do you want to go bigger? Are you able to financially meet those goals? Always plan for unexpected financial obstacles. We should always have an emergency fund just if anything does occur and we need the finances for it. Maybe you get a flat tire, maybe, like I said, with insurance, hopefully you still have insurance, maybe a toilet explodes and has a bad leak and ruins part of the house. So things that you might have to financially cover, we want to make sure we have an ample emergency fund to be able to cover those so we aren't cutting budgets elsewhere or having to eat ramen noodles for a couple months throughout deployment just to make sure that we can afford everything. Create a spending plan. So this isn't just for our service members, it's also for our family members. I know in our family, we discuss, here's our spending plan. This is what we think our budget's going to be. These are the bills that we need to pay. And if we need to make any big purchases, we really try to talk about it. So let's talk a little bit about the different pays. So you will be getting increased pay. Because there is CPay that you would get, as well as if you are separated from your family. You will be getting family separation pay, as well as maybe you're going to make rank and you're going to start getting more pay for that, as well as if you get the entitled reenlistment bonus, depending on the percentage it is when you reenlist, or even if your rate gets a reenlistment bonus. So we want to keep in mind this increase in pay and always keep an eye out on our LES to make sure we're getting paid appropriately, the correct things. Also, we want to make sure that we aren't getting overpaid, because if we are, we need to make sure we work with our admin department to stop that, so that way we can pay them back whatever they overpaid and that our pay is correct. Communication. So this is really important, not just for military families, but for any sailor trying to communicate with anybody, any of your friends, any of your family. So talking about how phone calls are going to work. If you want to have phone calls and port visits, understanding the internet usage. So depending on your rank and where you work, some sailors get more access to computers versus others who probably have to go to the library to use it. So making sure we understand what the internet usage is going to be like and how we can set up a communication plan. Email, making sure that our family members have the ship email. If you want somebody to communicate with you, this is a great resource for them to be able to shoot you an email or and also let them know what's appropriate and what's not appropriate to communicate to you through the email, as well as Facebook. A lot of people use Facebook Messenger nowadays, and that's also a great resource to use to communicate during a deployment. Emergency notification. So if something has gone wrong or there is some sort of emergency, how are we going to communicate to our sailors, be it through the ombudsman or even the Red Cross? So knowing how to contact them if an emergency does occur and what emergencies they're going to want to know about. Sometimes if we let our sailors know, it can distract them from the mission, and it depends on what you have communicated and what you're comfortable with. Care packages, making sure that family members have our shipboard address so that way we can get care packages, and discussing what would you like in them. I know I get a lot of emails of different things. My sailor really likes Lucky Charms, or maybe he's run out of toothpaste or the floss that he really likes. So things like that, so we know the necessity things that they might want, and then what are the fun things that they want, even including other card games or some cute letters or magazines, different things like that, as well as letters. I know it's not as popular nowadays, but there's nothing as great as a handwritten letter, even just a card. So, discussing about letters and cards. Also, understanding that things that we mail to the ship might take longer than the average letter or package that we mail to friends and family in the States. Netflix, Hulu, or Amazon usage. Making sure that we all have the passwords, what we're going to use. I know sometimes underway it's a little more difficult, so they have the hard drives, but making sure that maybe we want to communicate and watch the same show while they're underway. So making sure that they have it downloaded or the electronic copy, and we can watch it as well. So different ways for us to communicate and bond throughout the deployment as well. So things to help us in avoiding financial foibles. So being honest with each other. This is really important anytime, not just with deployment, but discussing the things like if there is a concern or you think that we should be changing our goals or budgeting differently, being honest with each other and yourself. That's always the hardest, being honest with ourselves. Hey, maybe we shouldn't be signing up for that subscription. Maybe we should instead be saving and putting that towards retirement. Or even things with like the Amazon, if you're a single sailor and you have Hulu and Netflix and you're going to be gone for 8 months, maybe cancel your account. You aren't going to use it for that time. So save that money. Be honest with yourself and really plan it out. Overspending your emotions. This isn't just for deployments. This is definitely applicable with the COVID and the global pandemic. It's very easy to have that Amazon app and just spend and order stuff, put it in your cart, and your card is directly linked, and it's so easy to hit purchase. So we really want to make sure that we're not overspending and buying things that we don't need and end up having too many things or having to get rid of it all. So, really being more cautious with our spending and not letting our emotions control it. I'm definitely guilty of that. Discussing major purchases. This is something we do in our family. So, if we're making a big purchase, like a big furniture purchase, or depending on what it is, we communicate, even if it's just through emails, because sometimes deployment makes it challenging to have a phone call. And even if I get a phone call, it's not always the right time to really go into depth about that, because sometimes your sailor doesn't want to have that discussion when they hear your voice. Maybe they just want to hear how you're doing. So making sure, we communicate, hey, I'm looking at buying us this new couch. It's X amount of money. Are you comfortable with us spending this? We can use our Amex points or something. So making sure we discuss it and both agree on it or come to an agreement. Organizing your accounts. So making sure we have all of them. Maybe you have separate accounts with you and your partner. Maybe you have multiple different accounts or different bills or credit cards that you also have. So making sure we have the organization and know what we have and what we need to pay and where money is going and being distributed. So that way you're organized and don't feel overwhelmed or accidentally forget something during deployment. Some of the resources available to you. So here on this base in Yokosuka, we have Fleet and Family. There we have our own personal financial manager in the office who is more than happy to sit down and budget with you. There's lots of virtual classes currently being provided, including holiday spending, planning for your TSP, understanding your LES, credit and debt management, as well as this class, budgeting for deployment. Navy Marine Corps Relief Society does a lot of assistance with budgeting and financial counseling, and they are also located on the base and have a great staff able to help you and set up one on ones to help you work through that. The Ombudsman, if there are any questions, we always encourage you to reach out to the Ombudsman of your command. They're a liaison between the command, COXO, and Command Master Chief, and the families to really help provide resources and make sure that if there are concerns or something is coming up, that they're able to get you the assistance, and the command can also assist in that nature or in that matter. Some other ones are DFAS and Military OneSource. Military OneSource is completely online. Great resource for anything. They help with financial, they help with deployments, they help with Plan My Move, job employment questions. So, really great all around resources for you. If you do have any questions, you can always reach out to Fleet and Family, and we're happy to give you the different resources and help you reach out and contact them by giving you their phone number or their email, letting you know their hours of operation. This is always a good one, just as when you're underway, and if you start realizing that, oh, you were getting surf and turf and the pie, the fresh fruit and brownies, even fresh coffee, and then all of a sudden it hits you that you might have been extended. So we always want to make sure to plan for the unexpected. So deployments, and I feel like everything with the military, you have to be very flexible, and things change. We don't really know, the mission may change, and sometimes the deployment may be extended or it may be shortened. So we want to keep those in the back of our mind so we are prepared, and financially we know we can handle the change if something does change. If you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us here at Fleet and Family. Here's our information. So our email is the ffscinfo@fe.navy.mil. And the first part is if you're calling us from a military base phone, the DSN number. The second one is if you're calling from a local Japanese, the 046 one. So we hope to hear from you. We hope you learned something new, and we wish you luck on your deployment ahead. Thank you.